Suppose there is a group of people who say that we will own up this land and this is our money, we put into this, let us build up a cold storage. Okay, or let us build up some go down for ourselves, so that all these 50 farmers of our village, we have put money into this building, so let us make this a go down, and we'll keep our crops over there. Then it becomes a community land. So it is used for common uses like collection of fodder, fruits, nuts, or medicinal herbs. For all these reasons, it is being used. These community lands are also called common property resources. They are common property resources because it is something which is in common to everybody. It is a common factor, as you read in maths, common factor. It is a common factor for everybody. So all these, things, these lands which belong to everybody, the resources which belong to everybody, the go down or the cold storage, whatever, blah blah blah. When it belongs to a particular community, not any individual, as per. So it is known as what it is known as. It is known as community land. People and their demands are ever growing, but the availability of land is limited. Remember, in your next class, when you go to class 9, you'll be having a subject called economics. And in economics, the first chapter that you'll be having in class 9, I'm teaching students, I know, where it is mentioning that what is the what is the most scarce resources in this world? The most scarce resource in this world is the land. You can have capital. Today you have less capital. 1 lakh capital. Tomorrow you can have 50 lakhs capital if you want. Today you have 50 people working for you. Tomorrow you might have 500 people working for you. But you cannot increase the length of your land, the breadth of your land, because the length and breadth of your land, the dimension of your land always remain fixed. And that is the reason why our land is the most scarce resource. सबसे कम available resource जो है वो land है. The quantity of land also differs from place to place. What is the quality of land? That is also different. Now suppose you have purchased a land in Shimla and you have purchased a land in Alibag. There will be difference. Shimla is a hilly place, whereas hilly location, whereas Alibag is a coastal region. It's in coastal region. So there will be huge difference. The type of trees and plants that will be growing in Shimla, you can grow apple orchards there. But you cannot grow apple orchards in Alibag. You have to grow mango. That will not grow in Shimla. Are you understanding? It differs from soil to soil. It differs from the quality of the soil. So in India, there are different types of soils out there. If you know it or not, I don't know. Black soil, which is found around the Gujarat and Maharashtra tract. The red soil, which is mostly found, which contains lots of iron. That is why it is reddish in color. And you find it in Odisha, Bengal, Bihar, Jharkhand, that entire belt. It is known as Ranga Mati. That means Lal Mitti, or it's a red soil. Similarly, you'll find, yellow type, pit yellowish and clayish type of soil, grayish type of soils along the Ganga coast, along the Ganga belt, Indo-Gangetic plain. So the soil differs from place to place. The nature, the properties of the soil. The soil of Rajasthan is not the same as that of the soil of UP or Bengal, because the soil of Rajasthan is dry, deserty, whereas the soil of UP and Bengal is Indo-Gangetic. It is alluvial soil. यू गेटिंग इट? समझ में आ रहा है मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ?
यस सर, समझ आ रहा है।
Okay. So all these things, the soils types, they vary. The types of soil. Remember, and this is a general knowledge question. That is why I'm telling you. Uh, you all are there today. कौन है आज? Shoikat Maiti, Aditi Moria, Anaga, Chetan, Gaurav, Kushi. Somebody missing, I believe. One or two students are
Sir,
missing today.
Ashlesha.
Aslesha, Aslesha.
And
Okay.
sir, one girl is there.
Uh,
Arpita name. Arpita.
ah. Anyways, I do not know why they are missing. Anyways, so you see this soil, the study of soil. What is the study of soil? Like we say, the study of heart is known as cardiology. The study of brain is known as neurology, isn't it? So, what is the study of mind is known as psychology. What is the study of soil known as? Pedology. It is pedologists. We have pedologists. Soil Conservation and Soil Research Institute is there, and all this, big. There are we have very good soil scientists. Before you build any building, construct any building, you have to give your soil for testing to the laboratory, and you should get a certificate from that you this is the properties of your soil. So soil is very important. You don't think that ये तो मिट्टी है, ये पैसा क्या है, मिट्टी है. हम लोग बोलते हैं ना पैसा को मिट्टी है, मतलब we say as if soil is nothing, but soil is everything. We get our food and resources from the soil. After the living being dies, it gets mixed with the soil, whether it's a human being or it's a tiger or it is a deer, whatever it is, or a goat, even a bird which is flying, that also becomes dust. That is why in Bible it is said dust to dust, soil to soil. That same is said in the Vedas also. So this Pancha Tattva that is there in the earth. One of the things is the Mritika, that is the soil. And let me tell you, the elements of soil are also very important. There are lots of elements there in the soil. You have iron, you have magnesium, you have calcium, you have so many other things, phosphorus, sulfur, nitrogen. So many things are there in the soils. And most important is these soils are on, this is just the upper crust of the earth, which is only few kilometers. Only the upper crust of the earth, which is the only few kilometers, and that to the continental crust. I'm not talking about the oceanic crust. Oceanic crust is not considered. So very less amount of area is available to you on this planet for land, proper use of land. I'm just trying to make conceptualize the entire thing. So book has given you an outline, but as a teacher, it is my duty to tell you, to bring the concept to you and to make it soluble and digestible for you, so that when you understand the thing, it gets absorbed in your mind properly. And this quality of land and the types of land is varying from place to place. And at the same time, the biggest problem that is happening with us is the global population is increasing. Not only the population of India, across the world, the population is increasing. It is more than 600 million today. So what to do? So we have more than 600 crore people in the world, around 650 crore people today in the world. How to support them? Because the food we eat is directly dependent on the soil. Now, somebody will say, "Sir, I don't depend upon rice. I only eat chicken roast and chicken tandoori." I'll say, "How will that chicken live without taking the seeds and corns which are grown on soil. You won't get any chicken unless they eat those chicken, those corns and seeds. So you see, you say that I only drink milk. Okay, you drink milk, but you need the cow, and the cow eats grasses and plants and other fodders. So we are all dependent on plants and vegetation for our life, and the main thing is the soil. Just remember this thing. This is very important. People started encroaching the common lands to build up commercial areas, housing complexes in the urban areas, and to expand the agricultural land in the rural areas. It has been seen. It has been seen everywhere in every part of the world. There is encroachment policies by the land sharks. Now you'll say me, sir, what are land sharks? We have heard about sea sharks, but what are land sharks? Land sharks are those people who are actually the builders, building big malls, big cities, infrastructures, bridges. They're all the land sharks. Today, I understand that is important for your agricultural development, growth, progress of the country, and everything. But at what cost you are getting it? You are building a railway line. Very good. It is needed for transportation purposes. But you are cutting down the forest. At what cost you are getting that? Too high a cost. And it is not justifiable. Because if you cut down the forest, then it is biodegradation is taking place where both animals, the flora and fauna of that area suffers, they die, it collapses, you lose a green cover, pollution increases, and then definitely there are multiple problems which arises with that. So at what cost we are getting a development, that is very important for us to decide. We are getting, you see, Gandhiji had told one thing. Gandhiji said that one should reach the target. You have a target in life and you should reach that target. But reaching the target is not that important as the means to reach the target is important. Suppose I want to become rich, but I work day and night very hard. I start a business and I do this and that and I gather money. After 20 years, I become very rich person. That is a different thing. I have a very honest way of becoming rich. I work day and night and I just gather money. But if I start doing smuggling and if I do anti-national activities, anti-social activities and get money, I'll become rich quicker, much faster. But that is not going to solve the problem because, according to Gandhi, means are more important than the ends. So we are building railway tracks, we are building bridges, we are building roads, we are building cities and all by destroying the forest, by destroying the agricultural land. There are many areas in parts of India where the lands, village lands, the lands where the agriculture practices were done by the uh, farmers, they sold those lands, and they sold those land, and those lands have come up with resorts. Now the thing is that fine, the farmers have become very rich and they have moved to cities with crores of money. They have put it in the bank and they do nothing. They just sit at home, watch TV, do all nonsense, and that's all. They've become urban dwellers. But what benefit did the country get out of it? What benefit did they get out of it? Farming has stopped. The amount of rice production or the crop production that would have taken place in that particular land has totally stopped. It has come up with a resort. In a resort, you cannot do farming. So your agricultural production has come down. So that is very important. What we are doing is very important. So people started encroaching the common lands to build up commercial areas, big complexes, multiplexes, offices in the urban areas, and to expand the agricultural land and to expand the agricultural land in rural areas. The forest lands are cut down. Now we cannot allow the agricultural to shrink. So what the farmers are doing, they are clearing up the forest land, cutting down the forest and practicing agriculture there. Now, what benefit you will get out of it? Because if you convert the forest, you cut down the forest, then those wild animals, where will they live? Those forest animals, where will they live? There will be biodegradation of the forest. So entire thing is in a very big mess. Today, the vast changes in the land use pattern also reflect the cultural changes in our society. Our society is changing too fast, especially in this after 2000. Things have changed in the last 20 years. The world has paced up like anything, has speeded the progress, especially from 2000 to 2020. In this 2021 years, life is too fast. There has been drastic changes in India. The quality of land, today the vast changes in the land use pattern also reflect the cultural changes in our society. Land, even say some, I would say some 20 years back, we never knew what a mall is. There were some chutput cities in the world, and in India we used to call them supermarkets. Like Delhi had a supermarket. So there are few places only who had the supermarkets, but there were nothing called malls. We had cinema theaters, which were halls and cinema halls, which you find across Mumbai. You find Eros in there, Churchgate. You find Roxy and all those things in Fort and all that area. You find lots of old metro and all those, and most of them have closed down now. Maratha Mandir near Mumbai Central, they have closed down because, and that is happening in everywhere in every even in the small towns. The big malls have come and they've all started multiplexes, and the cinema houses are closed down. So the culture has totally, it has become a different culture altogether today. We never had all the 50 brands of restaurant in one food court. We never had that food court concept. Some 20 today, you go to any mall, you'll find Domino's, Subway, and that Bhagat Ram and all those things, and that Malgudi and all those, one by one you'll find them. Berus and all in one line. So the reason is the entire culture has changed. Land degradation, landslides, soil erosion, desertification are the major threats to environment. Above all, these threats were previously also there, now also they are there. So they have added to the problems. Landslides, soil erosion, desertification. Desertification means land due to less rain are turning into deserts. So if you have less forest cover, the rains will be less. You see, today is July 10th. You don't have any rains in Mumbai. You have very less rains in many parts of India. The only reason is because the forests have cut down. They have been dwindled in size. They have reduced. So if you don't have forest cover, how can the cloud formation take place? That rain cycle would never happen. So try to understand that the major threats to the environment are these: the land degradation, the land becoming degraded in quality. There is landslides, there is tremendous soil erosion. The top layer of the soil, the fertile layer of the soil is just washed away, just blown away by the wind, just washed away by the rain. by the floods, by the river. There is leaching effect. The chemicals from the factories and industries are coming and they are poisoning the land, the soil, that increasing the toxicity of the soil because of the expansion of agriculture and construction activities. There is both expansion in agricultural activities as well as constructional activities. Everywhere there is construction in going on. You go to any city, I don't think there is any construction happening so much other than in India. Anywhere you go, anywhere in India you go, you will find tuk tak tuk tak. Any area you go to India, you sit in one room and you will find somewhere there is something going on. Some building is coming up, some road is getting constructed, some bridge is getting constructed. Everywhere, every now and then. So why we are doing so much of things? Because it is to support get a proper infrastructure, to support the ever-growing population. But at what cost? Agriculture, we need more food because we have more people. We need more food because the farmers have already sold off the agricultural land. Now they need more land. When they realize, they go and cut down the forest and they try to take more land. So all this has added to the problems. You can see wonderfully this gentleman has, I do not know who the gentleman or lady who has drawn this picture. This is a quiet village where you find in scene number 1. Are you all seeing it? In diagram plate number 1, you are seeing,
Yes.
students,
Yes,
are you all seeing it?
sir.
This plate number 1, you see, it's a very nice village, sweet village, where you have this kisan, this farmer going with his plow. This villager is just going with some goats and all, cattle. There are small huts, and there are godowns where people are keeping their rices and all those things. And this is a very nice picture, perfect Indian picture, village picture. I love it. Then after a few years, this is, I'll tell you, somewhere in 1950s and 60s. Now here come 1970s, where the tractor, the some of the kacha houses grow up into pakka houses, and you see the huts are no more there. It has been replaced by the buildings. The electricity has come, so it is somewhere in the 70s and the 80s, and here the tractors have started rolling, you know, and people have now are also dressing in different way, rural. So there is an urban influence in their lives. This is in the 90s when it has grown into a small township. It has grown into a small township, and this is 2000, where it is now a mega city with a mall and everything. It's a big town, big city, a satellite city. It has turned into a satellite city. So this is a change in the land use over time. This village, from this scenario, it has reached this scenario, and the transition hasn't taken place in one single day. It has taken place over decades, with the change of culture, needs, outlook of the people. But at what cost? We'll say that this is people is more developed. People are more developed here than this. In plate number 4, they are more developed than plate number 1. But at what cost? Conservation of land resource. Are you getting it? Me, I mean to say, what I want to convey you.
Yes, sir. Understanding.
Okay. What about other students?
Don't.
Gaurav, Aditi, Anaga, Chetan.
Yes, sir, we are able to understand, sir.
Yes,
Conservation of land resource.
able to understand.
Okay. Conservation of land resource. Growing population and their ever-growing demand has led to a large-scale destruction of forest land. Huge destruction of forest land. and arable land. Arable means a land where you can do some agricultural practices, some pastoral activities, some farming and all. That is an arable land, and has created a fear of losing this natural resource. So this is definitely a matter of concern where the growing population and the evergreen demand has invaded. They have made roads into the forest and the agricultural lands. People want to set up industries on agricultural lands. People want to cut the forest and build roads, railways, get more agriculture. So, there is a total degradation of the natural resource, of the natural flora fauna that is getting, this is known as biodegradation, which has not been used in this book, in this chapter. The entire thing is biodegradation. There is a degradation in the flora and fauna. The right term is biodegradation. Therefore, the present rate of degradation of land resources must be checked. It has to be checked. It has to be under control. Because if this thing is allowed to grow over the years, then we'll find one day that we are left with no forests. And if there are no forests, then God save us. Then God save us. Because the entire population will stop breathing. They'll not be able to breathe fresh air. There'll be huge cases of death among living organisms. The animals, especially the animals. It will be very hard for them to survive. Because this entire cycle, ecological cycle, you must have read about ecological cycle. That is very important for us to survive. We are all interdependent upon each other. Each one of us. Talk about the food chain, you talk about the energy pyramid, you talk about anything. We are all dependent upon each other. Afforestation. Afforestation means developing forest, not cutting down forest. It's just the opposite. Like social forestry. People plant trees. That is afforestation, to build up artificial forests. Land reclamation. Regulated use of chemical pesticide and fertilizers and checks on overgrazing are some of the common methods used to conserve land. Land reclamation, to reclaim back the land. To reclaim back the land. Something that has already gone west, to reclaim it back. Claim it back, you bring it back to the original state where it can be used for the benefits of the human life. Regulated use of chemical pesticides, I told you. Agricultural lands have been highly affected by the high dose pesticides, the DDTs and all, which are nothing but they are carcinogenic. You see, people are there who doesn't smoke, who doesn't drink, who doesn't have any bad habits, very regulated life, stayed in village all the years, but they are dying out of cancer. You go to Tata Memorial Hospital, you find lots of cancer patients. You ask the doctors, the specialists, the physicians, they will tell you. Most important reason is the food that people we are getting. The DDT and all those pesticides, they are becoming so toxic, they are actually getting collected into those vegetables. They are collecting those heavy metals, which is destroying our digestive tract, causing cancer and other deadly diseases, ulcers and other things. So chemical pesticides, this is a very toxic thing. It's a toxic chemical pesticides. It kills the pests. Now the pests have the same cellular structure, they have the same protoplasm, they have the mitochondria, they have the same sort of thing that your body is constituting of. So I use a mosquito repeller just to save myself from dengue and malaria. But at the same time, due to the overuse of that, I am getting affected. And I mean everybody. Because in the long run, it is also affecting our health. Because after all, we are also made up of the same structures and elements what the animal body are made up of, even an insect. So this chemical fertilizers and overgrazing. Overgrazing means the pastoral ground, the grasslands and the shrubs and bushes are being eaten by the uh, cattle, goats, and all these herbivorous animals. And due to which, what happens, there is loss of plant cover. So if there is loss of plant cover, once there becomes a loss of plant cover, suppose your book is there, you have a book, but you have properly, covered it with your brown paper and all, then whatever happens, even a rain falls or whatever happens, your book is safe, pages are safe because of that cover. But if that cover is removed, that entire book will get spoiled. Similarly, you are using a mobile, in the rain you use a mobile cover when you go out. So it's put in a plastic jacket so that it can protect. Otherwise, the rainwater will get inside the mobile and it will get problematic for you. So similarly, the overgrazing, the plants, the small grasses and plants are there on the field to stop erosion of soil. They bind the soil together. Now, if the goats and the cows, they start eating so much, then what shall happen? Those grasses you might think they are useless for us. Okay, let the goats and the cows eat. But you are losing the soil. You are losing the soil. The lots of soil erosion takes place. Are you understanding what I am telling?
Yes.
All of you?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yes.
Now, to break the boredom, let me show you some uh, videos. Let's first of all see what a
Just a
landslide
couple
is.
years ago, I saw the 1973 Dutch film Turkish Delight.
Portland, Oregon, February 1996. A mountain begins to move, and for a contractor and his son, there's only one option: get out of the way fast. They had just gone head-to-head with one of nature's most powerful and destructive forces, a landslide. The surface of our planet is constantly reshaping itself, and landslides are a major reason. They strike wherever the soil is loosened by rain or tugged by gravity. It can be a rockfall or a raging river of mud. But wherever the ground fails, it can result in massive destruction. On average, landslides kill more than 8,000 people every year around the world. They can crash down without warning and travel for several miles. In the U.S., landslides occur in all 50 states, but some places are more dangerous than others. Landslides usually follow other natural disasters like volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, wildfires, storms, and floods. Steep slopes are obvious places for landslides, as are areas that have been hit by landslides before. But they also frequently occur where people have radically altered the landscape. Hills stripped of vegetation, slopes modified for roads and buildings. And as our cities and towns expand further, landslides become more frequent and more destructive. In 1998, disaster struck the Southern California suburb of Laguna Niguel. Few realized that the man-made hill beneath them could fail. The ground, eroded by heavy rains, began to give way, and the houses came crashing down. 7 were seriously damaged, and 5 of them tumbled down the cliff face. Though the ground cracked and the earth plummeted, no one was injured. The residents of Laguna Niguel were lucky. They still had their town. The following year in Venezuela, torrential rains triggered widespread landslides across a 25-mile-wide strip of coastline in the state of Vargas. Communities were buried under waves of mud and debris. It's estimated that 30,000 people were killed, around 10% of the area's population. Accurate death tolls were difficult to establish because so many people vanished under the mud or were swept out to sea. Though the catastrophe was on a massive scale, it is by no means unique. Such disasters have happened before and will happen again. As long as the earth continues to move, people will live with the threat of landslides.
Sir, so much of destruction happen.
Too much of?
So much of destruction happen.
Yes, yes. Landslides are most dangerous, sir. In fact,
Sir, sir, one thing I don't understand
uh,
how 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 they are recording in landscape.
some are
How they are.
satellite pictures, some are after the destruction has taken place. Okay,
Sir, it
so
was showing that sir, in
Sir,
the
why, sir,
starting one that cars were coming near.
the people have recorded. People have recorded. You see, nowadays also, whenever we have those landslides and other things, recently there was some landslide in a few years back in Uttarakhand, on which that Kedarnath movie was made. So in Kedarnath, what happened? It was a massive landslide now from Alkananda River. The glacier, entire glacier, it came down. So along with the heavy rains, so there was double impact. There was heavy rains as well as there was a huge, massive landslide. Now, when there was a landslide, they said a landslide happened almost equivalent to the size of a town, as if a town has fallen over a town. Suppose on Mumbai city, another Mumbai city falls over. What will happen? It is something
Uh,
like that. So it is something like that. Landslides are so dangerous. If you travel to the hilly areas, like I'll tell you, Sikkim, Gangtok, and all those areas, Most of the time you'll find, and Uttarakhand and all those areas, most of the time you'll find there is huge traffic on the road, and people are waiting there in the cars, getting out and taking pictures, just waiting for the traffic to get cleared because there is landslide ahead. So unless the rescue team comes and they remove those things, then nothing happens. If you travel from here to Pune, I'm just giving you a very close example. From here to Pune, if you're going, you'll see the after Lonavala, all those the hills and all are tied up with iron meshes, iron nets. Have you seen it? If you are traveling by car or say by Volvo bus, you'll see that it is all covered with, it's all tied up with iron meshes. So no, there will be no, for, because in the rainy season what happens, due to heavy rains, the boulders, the big stones, they come down with great force, momentum. And when they come with that momentum, so it hits the cars and everything, and they smash them, and there have been many accidents previously. So the government ultimately they tied up the entire area with iron mesh. So
Sir,
nothing, there'll be no fault. Yeah, tell
sir,
me. Yeah.
uh, why the means why they cut the mountains means cutting of mountains.
See, cutting of mountains is also a type of degradation. Better. Like cutting out of forests, cutting down mountains because people want to make roads. This is happening across the world, not only in our country.
Sir, where I am
So,
living now, in
mm,
front of that only there is a mountain.
mm.
When we go from the train now, it there is an cut line.
So I think you are living somewhere near Parsik Hills.
Uh, Natively Nakam.
Huh. So that is an extension of the Parsik Hills. Actually, the reason is nothing, but there are stone quarries are there. So they cut those stones and they use the stones for different purposes. They are called stone quarry. So where the rocks will come from, stones and rocks, they will come from the mountains. So they are given, the contractors are given contract. They get the government contract to cut down those mountains. Nothing can be done in that case because that is what the people are telling, that we are doing development, we are getting development, we are getting everything, but at what cost? At what cost? Now the airport, a wonderful airport is coming up at near Panvel, but at what cost? How many acres of forest have land has been acquired for that? Do you have any idea how many lakhs of trees have been felled and felled, have been cut down for that? So this is adding up to, this is all biodegradation. That is what I said. It is not land degradation, तो छोटा term है, subset है. आप अगर universal set लोगे, तो it is biodegradation. What is happening in our society today across the world is biodegradation. More than 50% of the Amazon jungle is gone. The reason is biodegradation, because the big industrialists, they want to do palm oil business in Amazon forests. So they are cutting down, and the tribals, they are protesting, but nobody is listening to them because of the money power. Everywhere in the world, it is like this today. We are doing development, but this development is at the cost of a very heavy price we are going to pay. Our future generation is definitely going to suffer. The coming generations. Landslides. So you have already seen how dangerous these landslides are. Landslides are simply defined as the mass movement of rocks, debris, or earth down a slope. From usually it happens in the hilly area. From the upper slope, it comes, as you saw that पत्थर का टुकड़ा वो लुढ़कते लुढ़कते फिर नीचे आया और फिर टूट के बिखर गया. So that is, the big boulder. So, loose rocks. They said it on the video clip also, that due to the loose rocks, this happens, landslide happens, loose soil. They often take place in conjunction with earthquakes, floods, and volcanoes. It may be associated with some earthquake. If there is some earthquake, floods, volcanoes, heavy rainfall. So definitely the in rainfall, what happens? The soil becomes loose. The soil becomes the tightness of the soil is lost, and the thing easily it can landslides takes place. Most of the landslides takes place in the monsoon season. A prolonged spell of rainfall can cause heavy landslide that can block the flow of the river for quite some time. There are some rivers like Gandak, Kosi, these rivers which are at the Indo-Nepal border, due to heavy landslide, sometimes the rivers gets blocked. So they can block the river. You can imagine the amount of uh, soil that comes down to block the river. So huge. The formation of river blocks can cause havoc to the settlements downstream on its bursting. So if the river gets blocked, so what happens? One side gets filled up with water, and after some time, there is flooding. In the hilly terrain, landslides have been a major and widely spread natural disaster, and that often strike life and property and occupy a position of major concern. We have seen that in Uttarakhand, in Kedarnath, a few years back in 2013 or 14, it happened. I don't remember. Very dangerous. The Alkananda River, which is the Himalayan river, it came out with a glacier, and the entire glacier, came down along with the heavy torrential rain, and the Kedarnath Mandir and everything, it was almost submerged under water. All the tourists were dead. 99% of them were the 1% people survived. So that was a huge destruction. Houses fell like a pack of cards. They collapsed. They could not withstand the power of that landslide. So this is known as, in Hindi it is called bhooskhalan. It is very very dangerous, very very destructive. As you people said, it is very very destructive. A case study: a massive landslide hit Pangi village near Rekongpyo in Kinnaur district of Himachal Pradesh. You know Kinnaur? What is Kinnaur famous for? Tell me. Kinnaur is famous for apple. In Himachal Pradesh, maximum apples are produced in the Kinnaur district. So in the Kinnaur district, it's very near to Shimla. In the Kinnaur district of Himachal Pradesh, and damaged 200-meter stretch of old Hindustan-Tibet road. It is the border of Tibet. A Hindustan-Tibet road, National Highway 22. Huge landslide took place. This landslide was triggered by the intense blasting of Pangi village. Entire Pangi village was blasted. It was just destroyed like anything. Due to the blasting, this weak zone of slope collapsed and caused intense damage to the road and nearby villages. The Pangi village was completely vacated to avoid any possible loss of life. A few years back, near Sakinaka, I don't know whether you people know it or not, in Ghatkopar and Victoria, that area, Ghatkopar, Victoria and Sakinaka, that area. When you descend from, suppose you're coming from flight, when the flight descends, you'll be able to see those places. If it's daytime, you'll be able to see those places, those villages, and those people living on the hill. Due to heavy rainfall, torrential rain, those came, and many people, around I think 100 people died. Mostly the old people and children and women, they died because everything came down, collapsed. The houses collapsed, and came down. A few years back, I don't remember the year, but a few years back, must not be more than 10 years. So, and that happened twice. So see, this sort of things keeps on happening. It's mostly in the rainy seasons. So in this, when the soil become loose in the top, in the hilly areas, mostly in the rainy season, so they just come down like that. Entire village comes down. Are you understanding? Are you able to
Yes, yes.
imagine what it is exactly?
Mm, imagining.
Mitigation mechanism. Advancement in scientific techniques has empowered us to understand what factors cause landslides. The advancement in scientific techniques has enabled us to understand the reason, the cause behind these landslides. What factors causes landslides and how to manage them and how to manage them. Some broad mitigation techniques. Mitigation means settlement. How to prevent it of landslide are as follows. Hazard mapping locate areas prone to landslides, hence such areas can be avoided for building settlements. So areas which are more prone to landslides, usually mark them and you don't allow to make any construction or anything on that particular area. No settlement is allowed in that area because it is prone to landslide. That is why before you build anything nowadays, you get the soil tested. That is also done. Construction of retention wall to stop landslide from slipping. There are retention walls. So, so even if the landslide is happening, suppose this is the wall, even if the landslide is happening, it will come and it will stop here. It will stop here. So there is something that can stop them. So the loss of life and property will be minimum. So that's a building very strong walls and retention walls. Then that is being done in some of the places. Increase in vegetation cover is an effective way to terrace land. This is the best way. Increase the vegetation cover. The more the vegetation you have, grasses and shrubs and bushes, you may think what this grass will do, this useless. But they bind the soil. The main reason why you use the vegetation is that they bind the soil. They are able to bind the loose particles of the soil. Suppose you take out a bunch of grass and you do this and you'll find there are lots of soils coming out. They are able to bind that soil. So this, this millions of grasses and shrubs, if you have them in one area, one tract, definitely it will be a protective covering and it will bind the soil. That is the best method. The surface drainage control works are implemented to control the movement of the landslide along with the rainwater and spring flows. Now, sometimes what happens when the rain is pouring down like anything in the hilly places, it comes from the hilltop is a great force. Now, if we are able to channelize that water, we are able to maintain the velocity of the water. Then definitely, the landslide problem can be averted. It can be avoided. So that engineering is being done by the engineers and all, where they construct sort of drainage. Through that, the rainwater gushes out, but in a proper way, in a systematic way. It doesn't come into the settlements. The rainwater doesn't flows into the settlement, but it flows safely out of the settlements, out of the area of the settlements into a safe drainage area. Okay? Did you understand? Any doubt till now?
No, sir. No doubt. I understood.
No doubt, sir. Understood.
Now come to soil. The thin layer of grainy substance covering the surface of the earth is called soil. What is soil? Soil is The thin layer, or you have the upper crust. How many layers are there on the earth? There is the earth's crust, outer layer, earth crust. Then you have the mantle layer, and then you have the inner core, which is solid. So the outer crust, that is the only area where the living beings are living. You and me living on that crust. It is very thin, wafer thin, and that is called soil, and that is very frail. It is grainy and frail. It's very thin layer. It is closely linked to the land. It is closely linked to the land. Landforms determine the type of soil. What sort of landforms you are staying in? Whether it is hilly track, whether it's a rocky track, whether it's a coastal area, or it is a desert area, or it is a plain area, plateau area, what sort of area it is. Depending on that, the soil type will vary. Definitely, the soil type in a desert area will be different from that of a coastal area, and that will be different from a hilly place. This happens. Soil is made up of organic matters, minerals, and weathered rocks found on the earth. What is soil composed of? Organic matters. Organic matters is the dead organic matters of living beings, both animals and plants. As I told you, that animals and plants, they all mix up with the soil. Then minerals, different minerals are there: iron, magnesium, calcium, phosphorus, nickel, sulfur, aluminium. So that is the silica. Then weathered rocks. Rocks get weathered. They get broken into small particles due to climatic factor, due to temperature factor, due to many factors. So weathers, the rocks get weathered, and they are ultimately turned into soil. This happens to the process of weathering. The right mix of organic matters, the right mix of minerals and organic matter makes the soil fertile. So if an alluvial soil, I say the Indo-Gangetic plain, UP, Bihar, Bengal, why these places are very fertile, the soil is very fertile, because it is the alluvial plain, the Ganga, which is starting from Gangotri, from the Himalayan glacier Gangotri, it is coming down with great force, and in the process it is cutting down so many rocks and minerals, and it's collecting so many things, and it is depositing on both the sides of the banks of the river, and that becomes very fertile. It is alluvial, rich alluvial deposits. I think you have might have read about the alluvial soil. ALLUVIAL, alluvial soil. So if you have, if your soil is very fertile, even that is in Punjab, the why it is very fertile, because it has 5 rivers which brings the deposits along with that. So that is the reason why the soil has to be very fertile. Wherever you find the soil is fertile, definitely you must be having the river, source of good river by your side. That is why the soil is fertile. Topsoil with humus and vegetation. Subsoil with sand, silt, and the topsoil is with humus and vegetation. What is humus? Again, dead organic matters. And vegetation. Vegetation means the plants that are crops that are growing on it. Then the subsoil, just below that is the subsoil, which is with sandy, silt, and clay, and all those things you find. Then the weathering rock material you find, it's a solid, and then the parent rock. The parent rock, when it weathers, it forms another layer above it. This is the weathered rock. which will again get it converted into subsoil, and the subsoil will ultimately get converted into the topsoil one day. And in this way, it is being categorized, it has been characterized. So I just keep till here. Today it's 4 o'clock. I end my class over here. Go through the chapter that much I have taught you. Next week I'll take a test, uh, maybe on one of the chapters that I have taught, one or two chapters that I have taught in your uh, geography, one chapter from history and one chapter from geography. I'll announce the date beforehand, at least 5 to 6 days before the test is conducted. That's fine. Take care. Be safe. Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir. Have a good day.